when do you think will there be country-based competitions like the Nations Cup we had a few years back? Now that would be something that would be more towards the maybe right up your alley, Scotty, since it's more involved towards tech. So I'm not really that well placed to actually talk for Nations Cup and stuff like that.
Nations Cups have in history been organised by a few different. I mean, we had it before. The SDC would organise an NC to go along with it. I believe the TMS guys get involved in the Nations Cup scene. It's really anyone's guess coming up to it soon. I can't recall exactly who done it last time, and it was about a year ago now, I want to say, when the last cup was. So I'd imagine there's going to be a little bit of a break between tournaments for the next one coming up because of the new Trackmania, or perhaps with the new Trackmania you want to get your first Nations Cup done nice and quick to introduce new people to the game with the country that they're part of and that they'll feel represented by. But I don't think it's going to happen for a little bit of a while. I don't think a lot of tournaments are going to happen for a while when the new Trackmania comes out, but I can definitely imagine why SRK is feeling a little bit better for it after a successful Baltic Team Cup and a good effort in getting that region, breathing a bit of life into that region. But I'd like to see more teams, more nations getting involved this year, or well, in the next Trackmania tournament. But I don't really see that happening through the most recent times for Trackmania. It's good that we would only have one team per nation, or else probably half of the tournament would be made up by French people. But yeah, I mean, I think it will maybe come at the end of the year. If not, it'll be the start of next year.
Okay.
Something that the Nations Cups highlights, though, is that how few people actually play for each country, like at the top level. I mean, did even UK with you and Pac have a team?
We had a team of me and Pac.
Exactly, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I think there was maybe one or two other people we spoke to like bring them out of retirement, but actively it's realistically me and Pac, which is a situation that far too many countries find themselves in.
I mean, if you look at the winning country with then Czech and Slovakia, they even had to mix the two countries back together, Czechoslovakia, to win it. So it's a Nations Cup, but the nation or the team that won it was two nations being together as one. So I think Trackmania needs to be a lot bigger for it to be really a Nations Cup. If not, it's just basically Netherlands, Germany, and France who has a big enough player reach over
and Czech
five
Republic,
competitive players.
And Czech Republic combined to Slovakia. Because
yeah,
there's a
then you have to combine it with Slovakia. It's like saying Norway
essentially,
is a big country if you combine it with Denmark, Sweden, Finland. So it's a Nations Cup, so it has to be one nation, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Also, okay, I do have. Okay, I got one more question from SRK. There was actually Matthew Chadwell who had another question as well, but someone in the chat actually gave a bit of a hint. Why is there such an emphasis on LANs? I'm from the US and there is a 0% chance I could ever get to one. I believe that emphasizing online tournaments is infinitely better. Sure, but yeah, Terminator's saying that there are entire continents where TM is pretty much unknown, unfortunately. That is the case, for instance, when you go outside of Europe. It's not known in Asia. It's not really known in North America. Although Carl Jr. does have a word about that, Canada does have a word about that, but that's kind of like the exception that confirms the rule. There are not many players from the United States. There are not many players from Mexico. We do have a few Brazilian players, but that's it. So yeah, there are when emphasis on LANs can actually make it much better for European players. You're sure, but I feel like it's also potentially a mark of investment in the game. A mark of investment in the game when you actually get to go to a LAN event. Of course, that's maybe not be a valid reason of why there's an emphasis on LANs, but also there was another pretty simple answer, netcode. With when you get to abroad connections and messing with 100 pings, you can basically see cars zipping through all around. It's basically just a mess, especially if you have a tournament that, for instance, wants a LAN-like experience that forces cars on. That just pretty much destroys the experience for pretty much everybody involved. So yeah. Okay, one final question about, I feel, I'm gonna take the one from Aethel here. I can't cover everything here, sorry guys. You mentioned that players need a sense of progression while playing. Do you have any ideas on how to make this possible?
Yeah, matchmaking, right? Wasn't that what we agreed on? Like, when you can play against players that are around your level, and then you essentially go up a rank or down a rank. So let's say you go up a rank, then you play against new players at that rank, and then if you eventually win enough there, go up a rank again. So once my friend asks me, how good are you in Trackmania, I can say, yeah, I'm ranked 12 out of, I don't know, what to say, 50 or something like that. So you have a certain number you can say.
I mean, how about another kind of suggestion here? Now, we've seen through the Nadeo campaigns, they've had that kind of a skill point system through this. Now, I can imagine why some people wouldn't want this. Some people, of course, especially in the competitive community. But imagine if you drove a map, whether you drove it online, whether you drove it offline, no matter what server you drove it on, it tracked what time you done, and it had some sort of skill point associated with that. So that, say, for example, I go and drive ESL Hawkalicious, then whatever time I get, whether I drive it offline or whether I drive it in my own server, whatever, then I'll be able to get some sort of amount of skill points on that based upon how well I finish compared to how everyone else finishes. That would be a mess to incorporate into Trackmania 2 now, because there's just simply too much backdating to do. There's too many times that have been done on these maps.
Yeah,
but imagine if, of course, new Trackmania comes out, and then each map you do a time on, it's got its own ranking system, at the very least, like a sort of Mania Exchange thing, as Rioters pointing out in my chat, except instead, or also a Mania thing like they have for online servers, just have one kind of universal ranking system at the very least for tracking your own progression, and then players, of course, can use their own times when it gets to online, when it gets to them wanting to compare in time attack or something like that. It's a bit of a kind of a hotfix, so to speak, just kind of shoehorning in a ranking, but it goes to show, I mean, well, it might not be the best option, there's definitely options there, you know.
But,
well,
yeah, then again, you can just drive a lot of world records like this guy is doing on TMX.
Yeah, just create your own map, submit, post
So
it
it
on
has to be
TMX,
like
upload a replay on TMX on the same map, job done, and make it locked.
But it has to be like Nadeo is doing then. With the more people that play it, the more points you get. So let's say Hawkalicious is the most hunted map. If you get the world record there, it's gonna matter more than if you hunt your own map than not rigging the system.
Yeah, of course, we already talked about this on what's missing from Trackmania, and yeah, I do agree with, I already stated that I was kind of like of a basic bitch opinion that matchmaking is really what's needed. Ranked matchmaking would definitely help in terms of like having a sense of progression, kind of like how of course that's kind of a bad example because the ranks in CS:GO don't really mean anything nowadays, but for instance in CS:GO, back in the days where you can have decent matchmaking matches, you could actually say, oh, what's your level in CS? Oh, I'm actually Master Guardian Elite. What's your level? Oh, I'm DMG. We're around the same level. We can actually queue together. Okay, cool. Let's go. You don't get the chance with Trackmania, and if Trackmania could actually implement that, for instance, what's actually your level? Oh, I've got a A license, and I'm like, oh, I've got an A+ license. Maybe we can actually queue and actually get a match, and if you beat me, then you actually graduate. Like, sure, let's do it. That would be something that would actually be cool to see. But yeah, I feel like that's.
But last question from me though. I believe both of you are a player, and Scotty is like a high-level player. What kind of maps should be used in a matchmaking system? Should it be the official campaign? Should it be linked to Trackmania Grand League? Should it be linked to events? What maps should we actually play? Because I don't personally believe that we should have like, okay, I want to matchmaking tech, I want to matchmaking full speed, I want to matchmaking dirt. I don't think the game is big enough to separate players. I think you have to just play a certain amount of maps that are in one map tag. So once you place that, you have to play those maps, because at the moment Trackmania is far too small to. I have to wait until players sign up for dirt, because then it's maybe 20 minutes waiting time.
Yeah, I think the Trackmania community is a bit too spread for something like that.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, we've seen for some of the biggest competitions that some of these environments have done, or some of these styles, pardon me, that they've just not had enough players to facilitate a really, really high level tournament. I mean, there's always going to be players who have not decided to show up or something like that. But of course, something I would suggest as a solution to that would just simply be mixed maps. I mean, it doesn't need to be a super, a 40-second long map. It can be a multi-style map with, you know, dirt tech and full speed, for example, having RPG elements in it. I would go away from the Trackmania Grand League side of things, as I've had my own disagreements with how the identities and things like that work, and I don't think that would belong in a matchmaking system. But I mean, some sort of basic multi-style map that will allow the players to, once they know the pack, they can pick and ban based upon their preferences. I mean, say this map has a little bit more dirt, so if they're playing against a player who is a dirt specialist, then they might decide to ban that map, for example, if that's something that would come into it. But again, there's ways it can be done. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, to close it out on all this, yeah, you're absolutely right. There are ways that actually be done. And you guys are absolutely right, and I do agree with the fact that the community is way too small to actually have a system of different map pools a la CS, where basically, okay, you've got a competitive Nadeo one, you got a competitive tech, you got a competitive dirt, and competitive full speed. It's basically splitting the community way too much if you adopt an approach like that. I feel like an approach of a map pool a la Overwatch, where you basically get to have a few multi-style, get you to use multi-style maps. Around length can vary between 40 to 60 seconds, but the proportion of styles on each map can vary. For instance, you can have a multi-style map that's a little bit dirt heavy, you can have multi-style maps that are tech heavy, and so on and so forth. That can actually bring a little bit of variety and still give people potentially room to breathe, and then you put in a few neutral maps that have like an equal proportion of dirt tech full speed, for instance. That would actually bring a little bit of variety to the competitive experience, and actually based on that particular map pool, which is fixed and can actually well, fixed for a certain amount of time, like 3 or 4 months, and can actually rotate once every like 2 times a year or 3 times a year. Then you can actually decide to actually train certain maps, and with the pick and ban system in place, you can decide to pick, ban, decide whether or not you decide to want to play a BO1 match or a BO3 match. There's a lot of ways that matchmaking could work, and that just needs to actually basically write down a paper and try to approach kind of like spaghetti, like basically throw different formats at the wall and see what sticks. That's basically the kind of format adopting. Although rolling out officially, I wouldn't have took that approach, to be honest. I'd rather put that in a beta channel or whatever, but yeah, that's a bit of a digression. Anyways, I feel like this is going to be it for this episode. Thank you very much, both Scotty and Eirik, for being here and having a cracking time, and I hope that we're gonna have such a cracking time next week as well.
Yeah, thanks for once again hosting this, and we'll be back next Tuesday. And if people have any suggestions about certain topics, make sure to hit us up, because some of the questions people are hitting us up in the chat with are maybe too big to actually be answered at the end of the show and should rather be on topic. So feel free to suggest any topic, hit me up in DM, hit Scotty up in DM, and I guess G Geek also wants to be hit up in DM, so
yeah,
make sure to hit us up. Yeah,
and if you want to actually have any, and if you guys have actually had any feedback in terms of how the stream looks, I hope everything went good today. The internet didn't go down, so that's one good thing. But if you got suggestions potentially of how we or how potentially we could make our setup look, or how, for instance, the cams, the clip scene could look, for instance, we could do a little bit of work in there. But yeah, if you guys have any idea of what you would want to see implemented in terms of visual stuff in the stream, and have a little bit of feedback of stuff that can be improved, don't hesitate to hit me up in my TMs on Twitter at TMGGeek, or just hit me up on Discord. GGeek, it's pretty much simple to find. Anyways, for that moment, that's been Eirik Holdal, that's been Paul Gillies, aka Scotty, and that's been Thomas Mancozy, aka GGeek. This has been episode 2 of Let's Talk Trackmania. We'll see you next time. Godspeed, people. See ya.